Privilege that overcome.
What?
Privilege that overcome.
A little bit, yeah.
You highlight on these cards. I'm gonna read them.
Yeah, can you read these out? Alright. You mind if I grab these tabs now? Which one should I grab?
I think it should all be fine. This one is. Are you guys speaking of stand?
Yeah.
You are.
Stand?
Yeah. Don't try and adjust the legs though.
That'll get cut that off.
Okay. Yeah, the legs.
Thank you very much.
Just break instead of.
Can you driving?
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll have a laptop, right?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
No, yeah. Exactly. Okay. Hey, don't see that. Hey, I'm just grab that. You said you don't have your computer, correct? No. Okay.
Yours would be infinitely better than ours. Ours is terrible.
My battery dies like super fast, though, so. Yeah, before it starts running.
Is there a
If you
outlet
need
near
a
you,
power
Isaac?
switch or
Underneath it?
Well, yeah, we have to plug it in for now.
He's got power.
Just plug it over here, and then we'll get it.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready?
It just popped open.
Judy, that door just went open again.
Yeah, I think he's leaving. No,
right.
Are you taking it? Right. Yeah, would you mind shutting that on? Okay. Okay. Everyone ready? 50 years ago, NASA was faced with the choice between human machine activation and followed the obsession with the Apollo mission, the narrow space and closed to the cyber machines, where due to nothing but 8 human expansion lanes, 10 no trace projects, seems up to the giant paradigm, human expansion, human technology, human should, can be activated to for cyber space, cyber price, cyber team, your process of becoming cyber network, that's some capital, or still a human to hear. A cyborg is a post-human modified company, that's for cyber that is cyber victim, that's can you present, and talks about American culture, the June Modern American, all American friends, very got very particular that focus on human expansion, I'm setting human models, some advanced biotechnology grid, the parabolic purpose, human body, human proper cyber needs master, and server technology development, permitted measure, and this political ethical choice situates itself in a larger narrative of nostalgia, becoming real human. We have never been human, we are always already cyber. We request and change human action, you know, all positive combination on you want to serve the human bodies, the products, process, the non-human making organs, biochemical products, many forms, you touch the walk where they choose, they drive where they want to be like a person who uses cell phone, becomes something different, never protect this material, and otherwise they not choose, they modify us, what we are capable of doing more, we are capable of doing, especially human beings, right brain, using being eliminates environmental connections, that human being as we have never been human being, human ecology challenge, and redefine through interval relations with entities, and this system of evaluation is what beings count and what do not, is the politics of exclusion. This makes reality impossible, violence inevitable. Rather than such of value in the human, we ask you to embrace the impossible ethics of infinite hospitality and Trona, and 10 the bunch of machines on the side of tech, all facts themselves at the end. At the end, with the cyber custom like they already started drawing about the best abilities for same technology become a role of critical script, going to be judged over creation of our things, but are we everything that is valued and human terms derived its worth from values is not subjectified knowledge being solely as the average human government all becoming staying reserves and creating value systems and our roles of them is the absolute others and aggregate should be the only moral period we need an adequate and the possibility of comparing hospitalities and culture of the answer human makes decisions about the significance of being off sentience as a criteria for considering significance. You argue that's a feeling of pain. Why should pain be a criteria for significance? Because we can feel pain is not such criteria for worthy of being like ethical or something coming something find common ethical categories will fail. But denying to all there's the human other reflection of the face opposite because ourselves for the other. Because we can measure what it must be like self-reliance because we suffer the violence of empathies. Our egos constitute a single universal community human intersubjectivity. What about the anatomy or however deeply meditating table exporting self by insight yielded will be seen from the act of being a self. They are in the fullest being infinite and holy are. They are more other than the human other because we can never put ourselves and there's no base to the animal as possible to approach the holy other turn the other and to enter the self-same presence the holy other question that becomes a live real question that puts us in the question like all incubation right because some share because hospitality other shares and overturn the categories of shares by wall and the category from our right principles that fall through the crack or by people just by the right confidence of the other refuse to be unequal thus mathematical relationship the other unequal relationship to that cannot be carried or opens up relationship to create his whole without source radical symmetry the other come kind of body calculation Captain Calculation becomes unsure, becomes confident, open to feel and others to be true, be able to inanimate, speak in their silence, their voicelessness, feel moral judgments, goes to them and scrappy to governments or power, is the only thing receiving from the speakers, mere vindication, consumer seeking, and corporation possibilities, natural and any power to use them, and them dumb, have to have it come up by the ways of the others, trying to have demands, we carry the judgment conclusions implied by law, human tendency, you treat the inanimate as their instrument needs to be suspended unconditionally, you also step, the possibility of the totality is not totality, is not vote your time, you think the alternative decisions, not set by ethical public service, not ability to be, no, find reckoning, no longer self-disposed, anything that possibility for hospitality disappear, the sound thrashing, the common that is this death-through face of a fellow human being must interpret ethical relationship to the other with equal urgency does not mean we treat an inanimate object the same as human. There's the same we have the comfort of our body. You have to throw it back the poor when inside we spend our person. We even our way to live here and now again and again. And the inevitable termination of the universe provides us with a unique opportunity to embrace ethics. It should be the first impact you evaluate this Clark. And 10, there's no need for ethics, risk, injuries, tragedy, catastrophes, talk about so much the body come to be so much a stream of the energy from which all forms of body limit potential for becoming takes part of the actual condition of the body gives right to the being or proposed dissolution takes place for fate. The post-sexual beings, termination, reconfiguration, catastrophes, the start to new love engagement, so it returns us to the exuberance of their precarious facing us for the common skills and philosophy, assumes the necessity of a thinking being would totally redeem his single life is eventually doomed to premise at the time without thought or explanation, even life, one's death, and significance and face the other. We can't control of infinity into 1 trillion years without the expansion of the universe will disintegrate the fabric of matter itself, terminating the possibility of embodiment. Every star will have burnt out, plunging the cosmos into a state of absolute darkness, thinking about nothing but pulse and clouds of matter, and yet is that very face of a face this constant makes ethical opening to it that other. Every guest carries the extinction existing, his general reception, murmurs against the dying to life, like sorry, hinge after mortality against festivity of generosity, man must act more close to do the supply, idea, responsibility, primary receptive, you create every material discharge and that's against demands, from every object and everything, keep response to someone's life is a matter that chooses. We can turn away from basic, turn away from certain things, choose after capacity, to choose between turning towards certain ways of finding quality is not a suit. And refusing our engagement with this ethical community denies our personal finitude. This formulates a logic of complete control and immortality that ushers in planetary extinction through increasing mechanization, Geronin, and love in the world disclosure, the schema of abundant disclosure, clear world disclosure, like the schema of things of the earth, even though world disclosures, the no opening of things all the earth, like still possible wisdom, holding into a non-violent rejection of manipulative power, capital already puts aside while capturing the earth while changing by God, some of those vocal solutions and potential modification and mutation all the baseline of taking mechanization for things that are orbital, even though they're dead, dream and mitigate the accommodate the office solution. The problems of warming, manipulating, to be captive, subjugation of the earth, the mechanization. There's not only achievement that drive control, we can resist the mechanization of the recognition of our finitude, our deaths, forces us stand with complete contrary to meaning of being the nothingness. It's next one is the opposite of being planetary mechanization, not allow for the appearance of finitude to destroy the earth by changing when you're a planet, earth not a planet because the planet will interpretation thinking that high fundamental openness of the abysmal earth, the definition of the organic, the natural, the blood, and metaphor determinations, the pre-spoke concept of collective subjectivity, not total finitude signifies a chance for openness, clearing beyond the earth, ecological, most violent exploitation, nature be left with an non-metaphysical sense of dwelling, based on individual being, and it is dwelling remains open for an event without sensibility limitations, and defensive thinking is encouraging of danger, encouraging ontological violence, of boundless measurements, complete control by 40 new realms of collective king for immortality, without such violence to the ground, or new oppression, nature, dominating parts, social and control from violence, authoritarianism, also violence, power control, and lots of oppression just for strengthening the own expression, the whole world image, shows two sides in the same coin, of manipulative power of black mechanization in order to follow through, with opening to the notion of finitude, a possibility whether not by mankind, whether mankind is still up to course and frame capable of calling the living earth a home, thus the plan, the United States federal government should substantially increase its exploration of space beyond the Earth's mesosphere with cyborgs, a radical openness to the cyber resolves in confrontation with impossible other miscellaneous and Mercury, a commercial vision space, we see human robots working against space, include no alternative modifications of open teams of itself, or human genome, appropriate character as new creation, as a substance where the universe will work on sleep and realm, posting new type of being posted to creature, would not be also have machine pulse energy, develop its own consciousness, something new, posting entity, would be motivated that exists no guarantee to be interested based on 2% for that to meet, pursue mortality, posting entity, not need additional much of the motivation mood to read the thing, posting entity would possess an infinity for particular visual place experts, can write to novel, tell between my British interests, astronauts, and obedient machines for the purpose of the humans that set them a true posting creature may have desire to pursue the interests of human beings, may not mind of displacing the vision of what is goals really possible or original vision of space exploration with high compatible culture with the firm technology works for long, maybe less realistic and others carrying out the British space require change still from other results. These bits cultural motivation like watching activity from space background cannot be now possibilities are with consideration. And it's impossible to separate ethics from the actions policy otherwise known in its name. Cyber ethics allies to an openness to all other beings in Trona. And non-ethics, the hybrids very important. But no such thing, neutral description, impossible by politics, ethics, to suppose. Little neutral may be seen as way to sense a complex moral landscape of the hybrid such moves that way. This opposition to ethics, politics, separated ethics, hybrid makes where there's no clear civil line between things and us, between humans and non-humans, things and the humans reflect us in each other. We constitute these others possibilities, politically, ethically, morality is no more human than technology. Morality produces human being. In other words, morality is not simply a matter of choosing, and cognition is chemistry that's cooked. And one of the human minds with the quality and conscious frontal attention is related to basic neurophysiology and gut neurons, fundamental mistake, bunch of phenomena, made possible neuron metallers, and conscious study ignore the non-motivation to the possible materials explanation and understanding of the bunch of drama insignificant addition to ideas about brain function. The goal to explain why our mental lives contain more than computation than neural nature neuron interacts with the external environment, like previous one studies and activities not to be self-evident mechanism of cognition possible. Cognition is rudimentary neurophysiology by the base effects during self-evident mechanism neurosension possible.
First things first, you defend fiat implementation of the plan.
I don't know what that means.
Right, you defend that the United States federal government takes the action described in your plan text.
By the end of the 2AR, we will defend that the plan is a good idea and a world in which that occurred would be a good idea, if that answers your question. So like if you have dissats to increasing exploration of the space with cyborgs, those link us.
Okay, is there anything external from a defense of that action that you will defend?
Our argument is that the way that we have represented the advocacy, the ethics that go into that, are tied to the policy.
Okay,
laws.
so
We
that
cannot.
means that means you can't kick the advocacy and just go for your ethics.
Yeah, but the same way, you shouldn't just view the advocacy in a vacuum, right? The ethical justifications for it are.
It seems like that's a yes or no question. You either.
I said
defend
yes. I
that
said, and then I also said with the stipulation that that doesn't mean that just like the plan in a vacuum, right? It's the plan with the ethical justification for it.
Okay, right. Let's talk about the cyborg ontology. What part of the affirmative allows us to rethink our relation to like the natural world?
Well, the part of the 1AC where we discuss about our ethical relationship with other beings, right? Like, so for example, the Introna card, when we talk about what constitutes otherness and the relationship to otherness, I think that answers your question. I don't know
Right.
what
What
other
other
ontologies
beings?
or whatever. What are beings?
What other beings?
All beings, the argument, mostly. We should change the frame by which we understand what is a being of significance, the role of agency in politics, all those things. The one is like, I don't know what your question is. Like, what mechanism? We talked.
Yeah, my question would be, how does transhumanism allow us to change that?
I don't think we defend transhumanism.
Okay, then how does a policy of like cyborg?
So you're asking why the cyborg?
Yeah.
The reason the cyborg is because the cyborg stands at the periphery between what is usually seen of value, i.e. the human subject, thinking, that, and what is usually seen of absolute non-value, right? Inanimate objects, dust, etc. Because it stands at that periphery, that's a good starting point for us to understand the way that we relate to other beings, things that we commonly thought of no value, things to be expendable, etc.
I mean, what I don't understand is it seems like the components of someone or like a cyborg is something that we value, right? So it's not changing our association with things that we may not have value to because we have value to that. Because
I don't understand what you mean. So like, for example, I don't want to make it this way too personal, but so like shoes, for example, right? Yes, we value shoes insofar, but when your shoes get destroyed, you throw them away. Or cups, right? Cups are disposable. Like the whole idea of styrofoam cups is use it, then toss it away.
They're valued.
Right.
Like, their value is insofar as only their instrumental
Right, and
value
my
to us. They're not valuable outside of
question is,
ourselves.
how is it that adopting a policy of cyborg, something that would be viewed as valuable, allow us to resolve how we don't view other things as valuable?
Well, we rupture the notion of value, right? Argument is that because the cyborg stands at the periphery between what is value and not value, we want to rupture
We would
the idea
value
of
it as a
value.
tool of exploration, which is my question.
Why the plan text? Because there's a resolution that says we have to do that.
It's called speech 1 and CED. Except the time is 8 a.m.
How many off?
It's going to be 4 off and the violence advantage, then others.
Then what?
4 off, violence, others.
Then,
Okay, 2 separate flows, I guess.
okay, sure. 2 days. What do you call the first one? Violence, and the second one's what?
Ethics.
Violence and ethics. Okay. You grab 2 clothes, go. Yeah.
Or 2 deuce.
I mean, I guess you can float it wherever.
I mean, whatever you want to float, however you want to set up the date.
Yeah, the debate is going to be separated.
Two votes, violence and ethics. You got it. All for you. Sorry.
Give it up.
No, I forget it up.
Do you want to use the Acer? What?
No, that's going to have worse battery, dude. This will be fine. As long as you close it between things. Do you set the power cord anywhere? To plug this in from here, anyone?
I mean, the closest thing is
An
probably going to be
extension?
this, but you need an extension cord to get to it.
Okay.
OPRF.
What's it called?
Speech 1 and CED, 428, 8 a.m.
428 a.m. Starts with 1, the app. Yes. Okay. Sorry, just making sure.
But that works.
Okay, is everyone ready?
Yep.
The affirmative approach to ethics makes the question not how can we change ourselves, but how can we change our institutions. To change ourselves, this process produces a mediated relationship that makes genuine ethical engagement impossible in terms of the absolute conscious. In 2K, one cannot change the realm of ethical by turning away from one space and states of paradigm shifts away from the must resist temptation standard. Image of constant ethics and genuine ethical acts always subversive, never been result in improvement or reform of men, not really legally, but a morality good makes not be brought about by the theory of gradual reformation conforms to the basis of facts and grace, improvement would affect through revolution of man's disposition. If expression is beyond all means something more means indicate fact of purpose is already practical truth for the faculties that is a priority and the displacement of our ethics onto external political institutions culminates in genocidal violence. But once we accept that our ethics are contingent on all atrocity through possible zupanchik, in 2K man is not God, should not try to act like God if he does believe he will cause equal problem. This is that it fails to recognize real source of mutilation, possible Nazi torture, and kill millions of Jews not accept that they thought they were gods, the fact they saw themselves as instruments of God or some idea decided to be to political stages of God and chance to be insignificant. Bureaucrat basis of ethics not to imperative commands us to renounce our higher aspirations and imperative advice to recognize their infinite byproduct of our actions. And it's time to withdraw from this framework of mediation. As our alternative, we ask you to affirm the ethical commitment of the 1AC and its immediacy. Suspending the wall that mediates our relationships constitutes the only genuine ethical act. Santilli, 2K the intentionally pay for the source of evil, not only constitute for understanding this basis more often drive from responsibility to evil and global sense of the evil cause simple to a sense of suffering. The repels equals not evil because cause suffering. The subject bears the suffering equals radical and infinite death. Recognize the signs of the voice and the interior broken body strength and service symptoms of which apply to moral law practices. The new technologically matching regulation. The subject is being described as the world of suffering to be asserted. Of exchange for moral law is subtract from suffering. Is the missing element from which an imperative conversation asks whether I'm good parent, whether good is being done to my children. Our primary moral responsibility to choose things to show up in being that is in being ethically encounter others by responding to their needs and helping them as best we can. Next off, ACE point, the affirmative must exclusively defend a world which a topical plan is hypothetically enacted. Errors into the topic contains the United States. Verb should be used to action for policy and through government needs to try to think about whether something ought to occur. Visa point, they don't voting issue first is the limits to afternoons. The resolution by shifting the topic and virtually limiting the topics for vote to be better prepared for rigging the game in their paper making in-depth discussion. That nature made an argument impossible. Seconds, act conditionality, not to negate both a policy option and a speech act is too burden for the negative, showing our strategies inadequate, making the affirmative functionally conditional since they can ignore arguments made against them. 3 is education. There, formative debates functionally ignores resolution, making switch side debate impossible. That strips educational value from debates which we can have a thorough discussion of all parts of the topic. Cease point potential abuses and voting issue. The damage is done because we claim the 1AC strategy and the advocacy of the 1AC and the potential advocacies they justify have to prepare for all the possibilities, destroys our ability to create decent negatives against a smaller number of cases. Next off, Richard and I think that we should substantially increase the exploration of space beyond their expenses for cyborgs and political violence is sustained by organized thinking that looks at balancing meta-analysis. We have to have deeper insight that realizes that each of us are culpable for violence is integral to ending the cycle of violence. Capital 95 dedicating oneself to political issues, personal behavior be moved to the center of our politics and our critique. There's no exception to the rules of violence. Our most common sense everyday thinking is, especially in our own personal will of violence. We are the Lord make this world possible. We create it to happen from the possible. We create them to happen. Decisions to unleash a war machine and taking particular levels of power. We need them to hold them clearly responsible for their decisions leading to religion, our parent, without absolute political decision, minority technically not responsible for decisions like this. Citizens think therefore no responsibility on the underrating the responsibility we do have for our own spirit to actually participate and organize. Irresponsibility of fully independent lack of connection between national and also individual organized separate companies and we share in this responsibility for war and violence. We've always let it grow past and we reshape our feelings, beliefs, our values according to destruction of values of war and violence and move beyond the usual thing with violence means making analysis of action. Next off, the affirmative ignores the huge role of animals in space policy. Subjugating them into the realm of exclusion that they criticize and recreating the harms of the act. Their ethical position fractures our relationship with nature, proliferating anthropocentric frameworks that will cause ecological catastrophes is godly. In 9400, anthropocentric perspectives of conservation cannot take us far enough. Relations of non-human nature are poison. Violence is done not only simply to the other, we crucify ourselves in relation to the other, basing the situation and setting the limits to. Love not perspective, love not sense protection of others, love not red nation through the lens of masculine culture, which provide a base for violence, provision, and trauma, ecocide will expand our sense of identity in our definition of natural organization, believes to as a for our time, our knowledge reveals, and further they continue to stance that they have been able to have to step back from the brink. We only see this world as cross and irreducible gap as part of ourselves, and we are part of it, and speciesism must be rejected. This domination over animals is the root cause of all violence, genocide, and war. The K turns themselves the cases is best in 2K7. The humans, the domination of the animal slave, the groundwork for patriarchy, slavery, warfare, genocide, other systems of violence, liberation is impossible if disconnected from animal liberation, connection, slavery, women's race, and the anti-Semitism is connected. connections is justifying an underpinning domination hierarchy. The strictest obligation of animal space for all other systems of domination for a civilization built on exploitation of animals is lower and more degraded human victims, so it's easier to kill them. And the alternative is to vote negative to jam the anthropological machine and its ability to create distinctions between forms that solves as a calarco. In 2K7, the conference task was to provide with conceptual one convention used to jam the anthropological machine, referring to affirming life as irreparableness and profanity as a form, and the shame life aspiration gesture. Jamming the anthropological machine is just as important as a positive project, particularly on the non-binary, non-hierarchical concept of focus animal life is needed to begin to develop another mode of relation. Now, the balance debate. First, gut check. Almost none of their evidence on this advantage mentions the cyborg. Don't give it any weight. Any evidence they agree talks about the cyborg is not in the context of their security argument. So there's a logical disconnect. Hold them to the same standard you hold us for constructing and dissecting their Campbell and McDonald Carter talking about the security dilemma and the way lines are drawn between certain cultures, not between humans and machines. Not being able to draw a line between human and machine would make turning off your computer on par with murder. They have no impact. And additionally, we must question collectivism and statism in order to truly find new possible escapes from extinction. We can start global movement as Schaefer in 2K2, our obsession with collectivism to strengthen the quality and existence of human life and sense of pressure that they fall humanity hands and then negotiate with kinds of extracute some systems. When I was going to question the collective thinking and recognitions, we can sense of who we are and content ourselves to sit back and view and the attention to shift of us reverse our present course in order to accomplish such end state with identifies efforts to collectivize our things so become manifold hard we avoid the destructive, dehumanizing consequence of collectivism. We must turn to the individual and literally no matter what the state does, it cannot bring us out of the spiral. It constructs threats to increase its power. The Schaefer in 2K9. My understanding of history has led me to believe the present collapse of Western civilization engaged with analysis would explain the provided basis for resolving current crisis approaches, calling into question the entire logic of statism and the soft source forces seek out a rational space authority mindset gives statism a continuing incentive of concurrent necessary skills that can be used to increase the power of the state can't to reverse the fate it has unleashed. Go to the second or the ethics debate. First, there are affers strung together by loosely linked evidence with claims that do not agree. They're like a collage book taking only parts of semi-related snapshots and trying to create a coherent chain with them. Their authors would not agree with the full claim that the act makes. And second, their internal evidence is talking about a particular episode of Star Trek titled The Measure of a Man. Don't allow this analysis of science fiction TV show to infiltrate space policy debate, which should be about policy analysis, not TV shows. Third, their evidence doesn't say that space is the frontier for embracing the cyborg. It means that there's no reason why the app is key. Their internal evidence says that we already are cyborgs and things like artificial heart technology and other medical applications, which proves that the status quo solves. And the plan only reinforces the idea that the U.S. is the dominant actor who needs to develop space, which is ethnocentric, and turns their app. This is McDonald. In 2K7, national politics in the constitutive of political domination and imagining a space of critical national politics in place of Congress against forces always in question. There is nothing novel about the U.S. dominance of space. Even to pursue this imperial logic anthropological mobilized by questioning ethnocentrism and implicit this ideology is the notion that America must be trained into space because they are not like us. Space is already being produced in theories, regimes of power, political geography, space mounts, and far better indulgent distraction from the real world. And technology is not benign. Cybernetics will be co-opted as dual-use technology, aiding in warfighting and monitoring efforts. McDonald 2K7 notion of dual-use convenient for governments and mitigates against the declining public defense extension, but militarization and potentially weaponization of space, particularly in an era where warfare is increasingly being couched in humanitarian terms. Space technology is no umbilical link to its origins, but the time times purpose of military radio system and long after it has been built to be considered the use of basic ability should be regarded as determinants with those in military strategy.
First question, status of all three, all four.
They're conditional.
All four? Oh, yeah, that's the framework?
Framework?
Yeah. Do you have to go for it or no?
No.
Okay, awesome. So should ethics be affirmed in the immediacy, right? And we should question institutions, but we should defend the United States federal government, right?
No, the idea is that we just can't have like a mediator between.
No, I'm talking about your Schaefer evidence. You're not case. Your Schaefer evidence says, yeah, which one? Should we question institutions and collectives, or should we be forced to defend that the United States federal government should substantially blah, blah, blah?
Okay, well, the argument is consistent. It's just that.
Well, you're reading a state K, and then you're reading like, you should have to defend the state.
No, we read the opposite of that. We say that we should not externalize our agency.
What?
But, like,
You say the state K is bad.
Pointing out, like,
I'm pointing the contradiction between framework and these like three
framework.
state Ks.
Sorry.
like, that's just a theoretical reason why the ground.
Yeah.
So theoretical reason for counting.
That's not
Is there a good reason why we should defend the state?
Okay, in the context of framework, the argument is more of a theoretical argument, and that it's more fair to us.
Let's talk about the first K. This is contract. When did the 1EC commit entirely to changing structures?
Well, I mean, the idea is that by like utilizing the federal government and implementing the plan. Well, no, the idea is.
Okay, do you say that like structures don't influence things?
What do you mean?
question is, like, you're just watching evidence talk about like the role of individuals, right? Would you make a claim that
No,
structures don't change anything?
No, that's not.
You would not make that claim.
Well, not that structures don't have any influence, just that their influence in in terms of ethics.
So you agree that
not
structures
always
have some
beneficial.
influence, right?
I mean, yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Even if
The idea that it was having.
No way, man.
the
Let's
idea-
talk about this
the idea
at
that it would have a
okay.
bad effect.
What is the link to this answer, okay?
Just by kind of focusing on humanism as opposed to.
I mean, right, the idea
What
is,
part of the
and I
1AC
mean,
focused on humanism?
the very beginning of your 1AC starts with, in the 1950s, NASA had to choose between, what, machine and human exploration. That is just false. The first thing in space was a dog. The idea that space exploration only started with humanity and the way of reorienting
You point
our
to a
being
specific instance of history, so your link is, you didn't go back to
If you let me
1920 when we
finish
sent
my
Cosmo into
sentence,
space?
Nathan. If you let me
question.
finish my sentence, Nathan.
No.
The idea that
Okay.
space exploration and reorienting the way that we relate with other things has to start with humans and space exploration.
Right, but we don't
Something
increase
that
exploration with
is an
humans, we increase exploration with
exclusion of our
cyborgs.
history. What?
We increase exploration with cyborgs.
Yeah, that
So what's
doesn't
the-
mean that you didn't include, like...
So
upper
because
bracket
we
I talked
because
about.
we reference humans, we link to this K?
It's not
You reference
referencing
humans on the state K when you're talking about ethical political agency, starting all actions being done from the subject of like individual agents, right? How does that not link to that?
I mean, it's not referencing humans. It's ignoring the role that animals played in space policy.
So it's not even omission at this point. The link is,
It's not a link of omission because you directly decided not to include the part that
Okay.
animals played in the history of space exploration.
okay.
All right. Framework, case in the order of ethics and violence, followed by the state pick, then Subanchik, then Anthro.
Sorry, can you get one?
Framework, case, ethics and violence, it's the case order. The state pick, Zupanchi.
Ethics, violence, the state pick, Zupanchik, Andrew. Okay.
Where is
He's speaking right there. Why don't you like shut the board down? Do you want us to move it? We can move it. Can you
if
move
it's
this
not,
here?
if it's not like a big deal, why?
Can you move that there?
Yeah, no problema. I don't know if I'm saying that,
But yeah. Dude. Put it up, man.
And then if you do this, then it's
yeah. Sure. Move these expandos out of your way. Good. Get your whole area set up now. All right.
Oh, hold on. Counterplan, then the case.
Yep.
Okay. Where's the other counterplan?
Here.
No, where's the left one thing?
It's on the floor, honey.
Thanks, Mama. Sorry. We're good.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
Want me to seat it?
Yeah, I'm seated.
All right. Framework 1, counter-information will define the implementation of the context of the ethics they want to see. And 2, we control the only meaningful internal into education. So that's what space policy is trapped. And final framing our interpretation is key to positive discussion in space. That's our 187 to be the best model for debating as well as cyber knowledge, you can use knowledge and money of circular lives. Creating situation, waste of knowing, teaching, student knowledge, critical knowledge, knowledge, making knowledge, knowledge, care, responsible, object knowledge. It's always contract to sit together, knowledge, commercial, cartesian control. The final position, all the way, the thought cannot be broken, all the way people love to us. These opposition systematic denomination all comes through their streams, encourage, learn, recommend, understanding, one. And we go back to determine their accuracy, exclude students from their own education because they get like part. And this hydrogen practice in school, and the important social, cultural, economic knowledge, and encourage students to be critical biologics, and there is no after their interpretation, even SPS and PMDS, require shifting the way we approach space policy. That's because ethics and politics are always already tied together. Everything we do is for a reason. Our ethics should mediate the way we do things. That's our internal evidence of their vision, limited time traps, so we already know. Doing system on politics, that's our drone evidence of reasonability, best competing interpretations, cause race bomb, and complications and risks for the negative, and ethics and way questions and fairness education. We our index and ethics necessarily always those things that we control. Uniqueness, fairness, education, have already been lost. But ethics we affirm the moment that's a reason to reject the argument of the team. But if we win that they've advocated violent or exclusionary vision debate, that's a reason to reject them even if they don't go for this flow. And conditionalize voting issue way for skeptics makes us debating against us often to be excuse or strategy. They steal our best offense and see it kills up. They just go for whatever we're going to cover. Deeds for time trying to one, see content requires a card. Flash for 2 segments higher. There's no negative because there's no net resolution case. Five framing issues. A, extinction inevitable trapped incessant humanist framing the notion of human infinity devalues all being descending preserving leads the worst sex of violence or turn evidence. And B, ethics are ethic of infinite hospitality, infinite otherness, operate framing issue in the face of nuclear war that's in short and de-extinction and possibly go negative, their demarcation value, and human being knows the infinite value and all these make violence and all that's in short and DE intentions confer some will inevitably terminate death matters not because matter has been changed because someone has decided to exclude their being now. But they can't just assert that our act is a bad theory, it's a coherent story. We reject the exclusion of the cyber specifically in the context of the national scenario. We also reject the idea of ourselves as necessarily separate or better than technology. They say we don't offer. What does this say?
It's a Star Trek argument.
Oh, they say we're the evidence in the context of Star Trek, but in the context of broader ethics, they say we're always already cyborgs with this question. The way we approach this, they say that we reinforce bad things, but we know we uniquely disrupt the logic of the national narrative. They say that we would be co-opted, but we control uniqueness on this question. We're always already cyborg. It's a question of whether the way we approach it and with no co-option around Decimal 11. The cyborg approach things is a single vision. The cyborg is shifting. The cyborg is regarded as a breast and kneel, but from this one, because we need to challenge single human, not human. The cyborg is a feminist, not racist, not violence, it's sensitive otherness. Because the truth concept of display with the cyborg is because technology out of control. Because my phone lines, bad fellows, perspective cannot be reduced to one. Mentions way beyond the service being co-opted, running against the cyborg, very fluid changing. Remember the reality, one possibility now. The violence, well, they have developed their wiki since forever. We don't read any cards we're talking about anywhere. Internal violence is through our Jerome Evans talks about the logic of control, which our ethics is not solely a rejection of. This makes sense. We are not collectivism, unless collectivism means that we recognize we ourselves otherness, we do not export our ethics onto other people to say the state is violence, that'll be in the counterclaim.
Wait, if collectivism means we ourselves others, then we're say that.
Counterclaim. Yeah, if collectivism means we ourselves others, we are that counterclaim. One permutation to both include true perm, do the alternative ethics should be the center for competition. A is most critically spend 7 minutes 55 seconds justifying our ethics. B, everything's always already a question of ethics, that's our internal evidence. And C, ethics is the biggest impact, that's our internal evidence, and power is fluid, burn hour 90. Those moves that find themselves in church struggle against seem to adequate in the modern period of the zone game and center of life right now. We're now working to diverse someone's various issues of the present deployment. Parts of the concept because of this great overthrow, the single law of fair refusal wheel against one who knows one role in complex system of knowledge. Neither no particular harm this responsible for this system of operation by power. Moment is hegemony, the question common concern may civilly evolve with the function questions will be decided by political blame increasing intervention factors we are experiencing. And politics we are not the things that are capitalist evidence talk about. We recognize our capitalisticness in the devaluation of technology things like that. We just think that we should have this individual state order fix in the counterplan is conditional. Since all our ethics are internal evidence says that our ethics must be accepted unconditionally, and their footnoting practice means they don't solve Camel 7. Either policymakers engage in conscious global reconstructions of reality. It's important when it comes to the Homeland Security policy, the continued continues between arguments that appreciate the importance of activity, the direction of policy, rights and prices, and whichever someone will infiltrate the others, the American public conditions the rest of the machine. Like videos like how those nations, the departure what we can does not spawn. First one replacement, we uniquely break down. The violent necessary means we are unique confront to state-based violence, and the state pick is voting issue steals all the West offensive jacks focus from the 1AC, and it kills rational decision making. No one can make these decisions. Yeah, that's fine. Between the state and those Zupon check. What we never do with their like evidence is talk about we are not a suburb. We think that ethics and politics are the same thing. All politics are surrounded by an ethical reason for doing them, and all ethics necessarily are political, which means that there's absolutely no risk. Their link argument is incoherent, but we do not decide their ethics are entirely that of the state. We agree that they are personal. Read the call for the one you see. The internal evidence makes this very clear. Permutation do both, and permutation do the alternative. And real ethics are possible to challenge the cyborg, avoid new context, no shit, political ethics, rupturing desire to exclude otherness, and that benefits impossible ethical for different pilots in the one you see. Cedars from 7. Once the legs are bound with the other is contingent that the belongs to the world, the side the human resistance desire is like more conscious and drives practical satisfaction with desire, the term may be satisfied with the sun. In order to achieve the trial must be has to desire, the suffering must understand values, the life of murder. The other world does not have a subject, there's no here the event. The legend seems possible of radical action, you can see this act of desire subject, that we can see the split subject is the subject that lives, and the other's lives in turn, the narrative, the one he sees purpose to the alternative, there's no individual, so ethics cannot be political, only challenging the narrative desire which is socially constructed to produce violence against another open space to confront the impact. Cedar Psalm 7. It's a question of desire which requires consideration to our, but the agency that seriously takes the inclinations for actions of control within consistent with a relationship that could actually identity related to life. The unlogical condition for subject to is predicate the lack of meaning that probably this becomes the structuring principle of social relations. Any idea that's already dislocated with civil identity is impossible to attain. This challenge to become the alienation that has become institutionalized, and they link into all our arguments about concealment when they say that the state is necessarily always already bad, that rejects and change, possibilities to change it, and other modes of being for the state, and what the ethics to solve the link, embracing the state via ethics of the community, and demand for hospitality allows the revolutionary checks and violence. They assume we cannot make the state responsible. The activism which turns a critique the support. Accountability redefines relations between determined within the spaces and mechanisms that work and circle and more to do with convenient. I think acting going against a grant requires more for this unfortunate system of the real possibilities. Accountable postpone next to make a significant contribution to the but at the rules and system of getting responsibility not to send us and encourages us to acknowledge the responsibility each of us takes, which was not the society, the public community with the solution proximity is a state of attention, particularly predicament moral something that might mean the responsibility might happen is personal death, the redefining relationship, the responsibility we reclaim, the political and the very worst we solve. The impact is because we would be able to break down the logic that would allow the state to engage in things like genocide and taking a middle path is key to solvency. You don't lose 80. You think even if the organism for to return with the strategy, you don't reach out, we reduce stress when you find it too violent for action. You be directing catastrophe, the worst of you overthrow the suicidal comes between the happier than ever. Hunter was trying to experiment opportunities for the solution for you lines of flight.
Also in CrossFit, they agree that structures have influence.
Also in CrossFit, they agree that structures have influence is probably a reason we should not just necessarily accept that any risk that there's racism external to us that's bad is probably a reason why anthro. One permutation of both, and two, the distance intrinsically, there's no reason we should be tied to defending violence in space. We are rejection of narratives value the human over other subjects. If they think we weren't talking about these questions, they're the one who see that they have not read our evidence. We reject the notion of any sort of stable human. We think the human does not exist, or that is superior to any form of being, but they rely on forms of exclusion that value the living animal beings over other forms of being, which necessarily links them into all of our offense means there's only a risk that the case always a permutation due the alternative, and there is system of,
before you
and we truly need this on this question, so there's only a risk that we disrupt the violent mass scenario. Space exploration is violent now, but we are able to break this down as through Lonnie's events, through disrupting the idea of necessarily sending the human into space and the human being the focus through which we should do this. We solve the root cause because we critique of we break down the logic of humanism as per Lonnie's events that is at the root of anything that would
also we have a better historical analysis before you can subjugate animals.
We have a better historical analysis. You have before you can subjugate animals, you have to have some idea of some sort of superiority. We reject all systems of calculation, anything that values one form of being over another. Anything that relies on the idea of sameness, the idea of tools is prerequisite to animals. Any subjugation of animals that has happened historically, for the most part, has been related to them as instrumentally. We reject that idea, and so we necessarily solve.
Okay, reasons to reject this.
The fact that you're in a framework, conditionality, and statements.
Okay, and then which cards did you read on?
All of them.
All of the cards?
Not the packing part. I read this one. I think I read that in Zupanchik, right?
Which one?
I read this on the counterplan. That is like all the orange and salmon color highlights, but not the yellow. And this I read all red.
Okay.
Are there any other cards you have on the counterplan? Anything besides Burnour and Campbell?
No, that's it.
And you did read this one?
That was on Zupanchik.
Oh, okay. Alright, so first on the anthro argument, the last kind of argument you were making about animals being tools are prerequisite to addressing them?
Yeah, we reject the idea of any being as a tool or any being as something that is inferior to any other type of being, which means that we necessarily solve your ethics.
So you reject any kind of superiority? Between
Yes, we reject all systems of evaluation.
Okay, that's fine. Let's talk about the ethics, okay?
To win this argument, you need to win that not only you need to win that it is not valuable to discuss in the way that we have defined human versus machine in space policy, because your link is just not very good.
Or living versus not living good.
There's living versus not living. You have to win that those are not also relevant questions. You need to win that, human versus animal is the only question that we should consider.
All right, that's fine. Okay, I think it was the Setterstone card. Oh yeah, how does the challenge of the cyborg overcome
Sure.
ethics?
Was it which one was that?
Well,
that one? Yeah, that card is in the context, basically, of ethics. Says Zupanchik's wrong because she views ethics entirely as a way to achieve an end, teleologically. Instead, we think that ethics are the end in and of themselves. Specifically, our confrontation with otherness is the end. It's not a question of the way that other people appropriate that ethics.
The critique is praised in that ethics is the end, but you mediate the process. So how do you?
We don't mediate the process. That's the point. Is that there's
okay. So
we are
explain to me what
things like the Clark evidence.
Can you explain to me what the challenge of the cyborg is? This phrase. What is it?
Sure. I guess the idea that we confront ourselves with otherness, the idea that we don't have a stable identity, that we are made up just of things like discourses. Those are all ways.
Okay. So how do these things overcome political ethics?
What do you mean? I mean, I think the argument, Katie, is that ethics and politics are the same. The distinction between the two is a false choice. But, is this making sense, Nathan?
No, yeah, that's exactly the argument. That's the argument, and also the second argument, the second seer card, was in the context of the assumption that institutions, that it's only individual. It's more like a deterministic approach. The way that actions are done are both from an individual action, but also the way that society operates around us. So like, that's exactly why you can't just be like, I'm gonna act, right? Because the argument is that the other always influences your actions, right? We always owe ourselves to the other. Same way that the societal structures influence the way we act, which is why your K is wrong.
Okay,
Prep?
yeah, I'll take some prep.
How much are they giving you?
10 minutes. A bonanza prep time.
How humane.
Making your life 4 minutes long.
Just that?
Yes.
What about, you're gonna answer?
Okay, I've got 718 left.
Yep.
I do think you'll have a flash drive.
Is it in here?
Okay. This speech is going to see data.
I'll read these a little bit so I can get this in there. Sorry, I just want to make sure you can read it and read up the computer while I can. That's good. I'll do that. What did you say was going on, sorry?
Speech choice maybe.
42811,
Yeah.
starts with multiple worlds.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's the order?
The order will be the object, then framework, then on case, it'll be violence, then ethics, and then the
Logic, framework, violence, ethics, anthro.
Yep.
Critique, we won't go for it. Extended permutation is just a test of competition. They can't advocate the permutation that would be severing out of the 1AC's advocacy. Now go to framework. We won't go for a framework, but I'll answer conditionality here. Multiple conditional worlds are good for us. Our often increase 2AC thing for strategic choice, time allocation, secondary education, breadth outweighs depth. They have these two little we learn less. That actually comes up from really third our interpretation key to our philosophical and political objectives to the F key. To fully test the scope of education. 4 negative flex is key. 2 negative strength keeping options open. That's key because the large topic and F side bias 5 counter interpretation. The negative gets 1 conditional counterpoint 3 conditional alternative 2 conditional alternative solves. Infinite regression gives the negative the flexibility to counter the affirmative nexus defense. 2 on our checks will defend 1 consistent efficacy prevents us from shifting price focus education robot second time strats secure never decides top cap skew time teams just read them instead difference in speed runs never go as planned in their offensive level third terms check of use force time trade off between the 2AC and the block and our conditional arguments and force side bias check first last speed chain for the private controls the topic and the rounded cross play their reasonability argument from above that means that mitigates most of their abuse claims here and there is negative fiat even though we're not going for a fiat in advocacy it is key to being able to test the affirmative to being able to test the affirmative from every lens possible. Additionally, reading framework is not a reason why we should lose. Otherwise, their theory arguments would be a reason why you should vote them down for trying to exclude our discourse as well. They're not going for framework, which would resolve most of their offense. Go to violence. Our second argument goes conceded here in the case that our Campbell and McDonald cards are talking about the security dilemma and the way that lines are drawn between certain cultures and not humans and machines. This is a very key distinction here because the affirmative would only break down the concept of consistent human identity in comparison to inanimate objects. It does not change the way that we relate to other cultures, which means there is still a chance that would happen, and there was still a chance that would happen. Additionally, is the gut check argument on their evidence. It actually mentions cyborgs in the context that they are talking about. It refers to cyborgs as an ontology, which means they cannot actually solve through their specific mechanism. That's the reason why they can't resolve any of their argument. Now the ethics debate here, conceding our third analytic argument here that indicates that their evidence doesn't say that space is the frontier for embracing the cyborg, and their intro to evidence actually cites that already cyborgs and things like artificial heart technology and other medical applications, which proves that the status quo should be sufficient to help break down our consistent notions. If it's true that we are coming up with things like prosthetic limbs, which are allowing people who've already been injured to reintegrate into society and participate with it, that is probably a reason why the status quo is sufficient to reorient our understanding of humanity. This means that the affirmative is not necessary. That is a reason why you can vote negative on presumption. It's also a reason why if we win a risk of a link to any of our impact scenarios, that is sufficient to vote negative. Now go to the critique total planetary extinction is level in their framework. A subpoint Gottlieb says that masculine and done view of nature that only serves to distance ourselves from the other forms of life and reinscribe anthropocentric relations. We have time to step back from the brink of ecological suicide and planetary extinction, but only if we see the world not as another across an irreducible gap of loneliness, but as a part of ourselves. Be disappointed. Our best evidence is the subjugation of animals is the means behind which all domination occurs and leads to the mentality of us first, then that culminates in patriarchal relations. Genocide is the structural foundation necessary conditions for racism. See subpoint these racist underpinnings must be rejected. Many and two can struggle to be undertaken without circuits and without concessions. One cannot be indulgent towards racism. One cannot even let the monster in the house, especially not asked to accept the racist universe to the slightest degrees to endorse fear, injustice, and violence. We cannot follow the right to rise against this racist challenge. One cannot found a moral legislative order on racism because racism signifies the exclusion of the other, his or her subjugation of violence and domination. From an ethical point of view, racism is the truly capital sin, and all unjust society contains within itself the seeds of its own death. The refusal of racism is condition for all theoretical practical morality. If this contractual principle is not accepted, then only conflict, violence, and destruction will be allowed. Disappoint. We turn the case exclusion that they isolate humans and cyborgs are further reaching that they indicate constructing the dichotomy as such. They reinscribe the very sovereign power to draw lines between all forms of life, such as humans and animals. A major exclusion undermines their method and reentrenches domination and exploitative ethics that use animals as a sub-cyborg tool and will ultimately recreate the division between human and technology because it is based upon a logic that they reproduce. Now the line behind the first argument is permutation. Our framework for permutations at the atlas prove there is a value in incorporating their anthropocentric ontology. If they don't have a net benefit, disregard it because there's only a risk of like a subpoint. The legitimate permutation, specifically the 1AC advantage descriptions, they are the majority of the speech law, and yet to sever that makes it being negative impossible because the app becomes a moving target. Severance is voted for an extra argument of responsibility, which decay is an impact turn to be subpoint. The plan is selected in a vacuum as a result of a scholarly project that includes a selection of the advantages. They get infinite prep time to write the most strategic app. They can read different advantages or research different defenses of these ones they should bear. The strategic cost of their choices too is Calarco says that focus on animals is key to disrupt the anthropological machine. The negative merely footnotes them, relegating them further into irrelevant. Three is the ass reliance on the very logic that they criticize merely reinscribes the oppression that they attempt to solve. Turning case and spreading anthropocentric logic, we cannot settle until we will erase all lines between all forms of life. Wallhead and Williams' own strategies for contesting sovereign power cannot call for a reinstatement of classical policies. A reinstatement of this distinction will not do any such contestations. Find its very basis in the very logic that is trying to overcome would reappropriate rather than displace that flawed logic recognition by the state. Not a claim that contests or disrupts the notions of inclusions and exclusion upon which sovereign power depends. One of the ways of challenging sovereign power would be to remove the grounds for rendering the biopolitical machine inoperative. In its own terms, this implies the need for life that is inseparable from its own form. One where the classical binary does not hold and cannot be blurred. The refusal to derive abstract lines might prompt a reframing of ethical political practice and thought to produce zone of indistinction. One form of resistance would be to reject or prevent the inscription of borders between a zone and a BIOS, only through refusal of drawing lines at all. Nothing else will do that. Sovereign power can be contested, isopic contested, and formally starting with a non-anthropocentric position could solve merely suppress the critique Calarco. In 2K70, human scope of discussion will eliminate anthropocentric politics. If the questions of the animal taken seriously in the political discussion were to be moved to that level, the states of the debate would change considerably. Theorists who employ the logic of this discourse to bring animals within the sphere of moral and political considerability do not believe that ethics of politics that generally respect animal life can be accomplished within the confines of the traditions that they use. Neo-humanist arguments have little, if any, weight, even if one were to reinscribe animal rights. Such gestures can only be trigonometric. The real question lies between the project of radicalizing the existing politics to accommodate non-human life, which will allow for an entirely new economy of human-animal relations. Anyone who argues against the existing forms of politics can be reformed or radicalized. It is clearly unrealistic and utopian thinker. Necessity for working towards a form of politics beyond the present humanist order becomes clear and beyond any shadow of a doubt. Their next argument is that it's not intrinsic. It's not intrinsic. I'll do the link debate here. They choose their words and their words carefully and should be forced to defend them as part of their speech act. In the tag to their Lawnius card, they specifically chose to define the choice NASA faces between human and machine exploration, excluding animals or other biological organisms in space. This exploration, subjugating them to the realm of the irrelevant. This only reinscribes the same politics of exclusion that their Introna 9-card impacts by excluding another group that occupies a massive amount more of the planet than humans and technology do. Second, they have conceded the second portion of the link. This is game over. No new one-air arguments. Gottlieb indicates that Levinas has a masculine and dominant view of nature that only serves to distance ourselves from the other forms of life and to reinscribe the anthropocentric relations. We have time to step back from the brink of planetary extinction, but only if we see the world as not as another across an irreducible gap of loneliness, but as a part of ourselves. This is the wrong method that recreates exclusion, which turns their impact and proliferates anthropocentrism, which dooms us to extinction. Third, we must reframe the question of the cyborg without anthropocentrism. In 2K4, cyborg ontology reveals the anthropocentrism that sustains the hierarchy. Anthropocentrism tries to maintain its question and the status of the cyborg. We should reload the question of the cyborg without the burden of anthropocentrism to resume the collaboration towards post-human ethics. For Calarco says that focus on animals is key, and they not only do they not focus on animals, but completely ignore them even if they win. That they intend to blur the distinction of life forms. The fact that they don't explicitly mention animal life in there, what I see means that they should lose. And space policy is founded on animals. I'll read some evidence that indicates this. Space Today Online, for the first man and women who traveled in space depended on the sacrifice of other animals who gave their lives to the advancement of human knowledge. The USSR was preparing to send a dog into orbit above the Earth. The world's second artificial space satellite on board was Laika, the first animal to go into orbit. Laika captures the hearts and minds of people with a monument to her erected 40 years after her space flight with the Russians. They say that valuing animals over others links to their offense. However, we don't do that. We just break down the notion that humans are something that is distinct from that, which is something that the 1AC carefully ignores. When they say permutation to the alternative, or that severs the advocacy of the affirmative because they explicitly exclude this. They should be bound to defending their advocacy. That's their competition standard from the other counterplan flow. However, the alternative is a better way of breaking down that. They say that they control uniqueness. You can group this with their we solve the root cause arguments. They don't solve that because they explicitly exclude animal life forms. That was the analysis done on the overview. They say that their last argument is not true because they are reifying the same harms that they seek to solve. I'll give Katie an analytic read on that.
We're doing prep now for crossings first.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Wait.
Yeah.
I don't understand what the link is. Please explain it.
Now, right, there's two levels to the link. First is the idea of excluding animals from the discussion of space exploration, right? The idea that you framed the very beginning of your affirmative with NASA had to make a choice between human and machine exploration is something that excludes
you do not think that's a fair characterization of the discourse that historically happened in Washington at that point?
No. Animals were a key part of space research before.
I agree. But
yeah, you're right.
We're talking about the discursive frames through which a space.
And so, if you only acknowledge the human portion of that just means that we view the animals as a tool to that human.
Right, they were talking about a historical frame. Like in the 50s, they were developed this cyber.
That's something that your policy continues by acknowledging that, right?
No.
Wait, hold on.
I understand that you try to.
Was your argument that because we're saying that in the 50s this was the discursive choice they chose, that's the link to us?
They chose, first off. I mean, I read.
That was a discursive frame. Your argument is that
your argument talks about what they did materially. That's true, but I think there's a distinction you made. All right. Second, on case, you're still talking about like these McDonald and Campbell cards that we haven't read on this app since January. So like, how is this any of this analysis on case like talking about anything? They're McDonald and Campbell cards. We're talking about security. We took those out of the app.
Okay.
So.
All right. That's fair. The other argument still holds true because it's an indict of what your Introna evidence talks about. There's also, like, your Introna evidence indicates that we're already shifting towards, like, cyborg rationale, things like artificial hearts, limbs, things like that. that.
Yeah, I know, but then Introna says that we're still devaluing technology. We fail to recognize
That's
the
probably
way that we are
a reason
constituted
why
by
current-
otherness.
That's still probably a reason why current scientific innovations are sufficient. Like your Introna evidence does not make the comparative claim that those are not sufficient. It just says currently
yes,
they're
he
not
does.
there yet.
Yes, he does. So Introna's not talking about the way technological progress makes us realize. I mean, he talked. Yeah, that's fine. All right. Yeah. On this case, okay. So what's the next level of link argument besides this history argument?
Right. There's also the E evidence that talks about why the cyborg ontology itself is a notion that is anthropocentric.
All right. What's the warrant in that card? Reading this card,
right.
it just says, a cyborg ontology reveals the anthropocentrism that sustains the hierarchy. Like, this is like a direct line from our Introna evidence. It talks about critiques of like Haraway's anthropocentric framing of the cyborg ontology. How are we that?
I mean, the E evidence would be a reason why the notion, or using the language of the cyborg ontology.
No, then the E evidence of the question says we should reload the question of the cyborg without the burden of anthropocentrism.
Exactly, and that's
the
something that
collaboration
we
toward
have
that
to do.
post-human ethics.
Yeah, post-human ethics is something that we can.
Have
post
you
as a
read
basic
the
idea. Our argument is
Introna
that you
evidence
don't
from
go
the
there.
OAC?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine then. Sure. If the plan, wait, okay. When then there's a third link component, you said?
Yeah, that is the Levinas portion of that. The Gottlieb evidence indicates that Levinas has a masculine and dominant view of nature.
Because of the face, he views value in the face, which is also what the Introna evidence critiques. Like,
That's not a question.
when you
Okay.
read this
So
evidence.
No, I just thought.
You do not, you do or do not, I'm sorry. Did she say she does?
Oh, no, I just.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just wanted to know back. You need to stop that.
No, he's just.
Okay.
One on RTS, sounds good, right? Sitting here. Over there.
One in our ToC round two.
Yep.
Touch with TNC oath. TNC overview. Starts with.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, it's gonna be the, what is this, bottom of antho?
Yeah.
Bottom of antho, and then, the topic mix. Something good?
You got
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
You said bottom answer in the counterpoint?
yeah. Our ethics are better in solving, our ecological ethics would expand our personal species sense of identity to an inter-identification with the natural world, so that such an ethics would then create a sense of care for the natural world that is able to bring back from the brink of extinction and create compassion and hospitality. That's the Gottlieb evidence. Now, the Kaplan pick. The affirmative as a concept is a good idea, but the speech act of the one I see as a fundamental flaw. Inclusion of the state presupposes it must be the starting point for rethinking of human thought. While we all seem to agree that violence is bad, there's a disagreement on the question of how to analyze violence. They locate violence in structures such as federal government, biopolitics, and violence in other countries. All these structures might facilitate violence. They do not cause or enact violence. People do violence. We use a behavioralist model to suggest that the one I see is terrible in its analysis of violence for the following reasons. Asymphony causes more violence because of the distance to the people they discuss. For the affirmative, these subjects are faceless others who are dispensable because of lack of more local understanding of others. B subpoint, it exonerates people of their duty to alter their violent behavior. Institutions often mediate the action of people. The heart of our claim, often mediate the action of people. The heart of our claim is that people need to reclaim their agency and act in accordance with ethical principles. Specifically, the Nazi soldiers' ethical principles should have precluded them from acting upon the direction of Nazi leaders. However, their separation of ethics from politics allowed for violence to occur. The novel All Quiet on the Western Front illustrates our position. Toward the end, the main character confronts a French soldier who kills in order to save his own life. He realizes this person had a family, a story, etc. He reflects on numerous people who died in the war without a second thought. More of a face-to-face engagement with others is precisely the sort of change that is necessary for actively pursuing an ethical way of being in the world. Ultimately, we are a gateway argument. Our evidence is pretty good in suggesting that we can't discuss how to act on violence prior to a discussion of where we should locate the balance. The net benefit is a 100% solvency takeout. Even if we withdraw, even if we explore space, violence will persist because it's behavioral. Violence will occur no matter what. This turns the case. Focus on structural violence and zero-sum focus on behavioral violence, meaning that you increase violence by obscuring and misidentifying the problem. And your externalization of agency to the government means that you're destroying personal activism and steering movement in the wrong direction. Increasing patriarchy and behavioral violence is the root cause of the problem. Error replication leads to ever increasing violence, which means extinction is inevitable in your framework, and there's no value to life in your framework. Externalization agency is let's go the only thing that we have control of, which is ourselves. Giving up our agency to structures strips our ability to define our own existence. The first argument permutation both with that links to the NAP, and if it still includes the status action of the What I See Speech Act, and proves that the app is not a genuine advocacy. You vote negative on for the presumption because they can't solve. They say permutation do the alternative or the counterplan, which this becomes severance. Our advocacy excludes the use of the state and fiat as per the Speech Act of the One I See. This has two implications. A subpoint is you vote negative because severance jacks our ground. The app could sever any part to get links. The app could sever any part to get links. Get out of links to argument. B subpoint takes their solvency. It proves that there's nothing. There's nothing holy germane to the way. There's nothing holy germane to the One I See. Their first Campbell card supercharges our case arguments because it emphasizes the importance of continuity between arguments, which is the reason why they strung together the One I See. The way they strung together their One I See doesn't solve. They say they recognize their implicitness in the claim. Just because they recognize their implicitness doesn't mean that they solve it. It is the inclusion of the state that turns the app because they engage in what we call externalizing our agency. That was explained above. They say that because the counterplan is conditional, it doesn't solve ethics. But if we're going for the counterplan, that advocacy inherently becomes unconditional. So this argument doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to be conditional right now, or it doesn't have to be unconditional until They say that they break down violence. They ultimately don't break it down. That was explained above. Now the state thinks that argument. First, it's good. A subpoints education. We're exposed to different perspectives on implementing the app as well as for productive discussion about space exploration. B subpoint. The B subpoint accesses topic-specific education because we analyze the effect of the state on implementing space policy. Also, this is strategic thinking. The ToC has to be prepared to debate different counterplans. And the counterplan is predictable. All we did is pick out of the state. They don't get any offense. There's plenty of literature. I'm sure that they're ready to go on Kepler. Now they're going to burn out part, but they're missing the point. Whether or not we act is irrelevant. A subpoint, they have no solvency for action. They discuss, but they don't have the agency to procure the change they desire. B subpoint argument is not that we shouldn't act, but how we analyze violence is also important. We contend that starting from our own standpoint is key. Otherwise, we end up scapegoating others. This functionally undercuts the possibility of meaningful change. This argument is an absolute link take on solves better because our evidence proves that action is only effective at this level. Also, change starts with oneself. Structural change is unable to produce meaningful change, whereas individual change actually brings about the possibility of ending violence. As Kepler in '95 will explain violence by circumstance and the attempt to counter by circumstance, and because the way we can stand command of the problem, we are subjects able to take the task and change the circumstance and not people who remain within our scope. Changing people is neither within our own power nor ultimately in our interest. We prefer to keep certain people under control to limits on their violence, but therefore changing people's behaviors beyond the range of beyond the influence of behavior only by changing and the criticism comes first. So without attending to violent behavior, we are guaranteed to cause greater violence. As Kepler in '95 we give the usual frame of violence towards the structures about a planned decision to act into the analysis of action. There's talks of the government doing nothing or inaction, the need for action, the time of action, the need for strategy, the inability to act spells our desire to become active again. We speak and become active with activism or activism, simple activity is good at doing nothing, not as valuable as quality of action, etc. The fact that action is such.
Would you like some prep?
Yes, we would. Now were the voters just severance? Voters are only severance, right?
Yeah.
Alright, I'm done. 203.
Hang on.
Or 3 inches.
You gotta wait for your
You
job.
got 3 U's.
Yeah.
7-1.
Excuse me, no. Excuse me, mom. That's one of the jokes. 3 jokes. That's what excuse me, mom. That's what excuse me, mom.
I think he probably went to the bathroom.
Fair.
Probably we can't rush.
I too have a bit off hold.
You should just go in.
Never mind, I just go to that right there.
I don't think
Found it.
we'll see it.
Like traditional theaters.
How much did you use?
3 minutes.
Oh, Lord.
All right.
The
Close
order
the
is
door.
going to be.
What happened?
Nothing, nothing.
I'm sorry, for the guy line.
Okay, the order is going to be the violence flow, the ethics flow, the first criticism, which was the Zuhanchi criticism. Then it's going to be the counter plan.
Yeah.
Then it's going to be the okay.
Sorry, what was after Conchik?
Zuhanchik is the counter plan, then the K.
Okay.
Right. Right. Ready? This is a cyber hazard. We will defend the ethics of the context of the one you see through the cyborg, i.e. the ethics of the machining, which solves all their offenses. These are just not separators. We do not even read the Campbell McDowell evidence anymore. It's not the context of the one you see all of our internal evidence and the Lance McCurdy evidence and the context of the one you see are the context of the way we are moved towards a cyber society, but rather our argument is that we are the rupture of the way that's being continually mechanized, how the way that is being mechanized, and this has goes. That's exactly why ethics and politics not be separated. Why we are advocating a form of why we're advocating a form of ethical releasement in terms of the political closure. As you cannot not the expect two magnitudes. The one the first is the distinctions of the level under the logical control. Our drone evidence says as long as we view beings they will be controlled, that allows us to view the planet as a standing reserve as a resource only for our consumption. That gives us inroads into their answer arguments to do not destroy animals necessarily. The second is the block has conceded that death is not an impact. All forms of matter are necessarily equal. Our Clark evidence as well as our chart evidence says that the decision to privilege one form of being over another is inherently wrong because it's a projection of the self. The reason their case of the animals matter just with humans is a projection that animals experience pain. We should extend the idea of what is significance to them. Rather, we say that you could never know what it's like to be a bat. Thomas Nagel said that you don't know what it's like to be a table, which means they are infinite and holy, which is exactly why our ethics and machine that's why we can K them, but they can't critique us because their ethics are only extended to those that are like us, but rather our ethics are openness to infinite. How to see that extinction is certainly inevitable because the destruction of matter is inevitable because of entropy in the universe, which are Clark ethics, which means you have an ethical obligation to be open to the now the limelight argument. They make the argument that, about NAS, etc. But yeah, yes, we already cyber now already answered that on the question of the way that our ethics, the way that our ethics actualize that and align ourselves. And the one to see now there's a Zupanchik argument. You can't go. Okay, yeah, Zupanchik argument. You can't go for the state K when you're conceding two dissensitive public. The first is our accountability DI, their vision of the state and sure it assumes and economic relationships where we set ourselves over and it's the idea through contractual agreements. Do you want to see shifts that relationship to one of obligation responsibility? We realize that we are the state, which means we solve their co-option arguments. That's our BS evidence. The second is they have conceded the strategy that their approach to macro politics, their approach to politics is always too radical or some to destroy the strata through a process of erasure. This just makes the state more powerful when it comes back. The resistance just gives power and platform to exert itself, which proves that you must act through a more conventional means in order for people to solve that. Now, the counterplan power, yes, people do violence, but they agreed, and the crossings are the ones who see this crossing should be binding, that structures also matter. And structures help. Inequality and poverty sometimes drive people to do things. That is a true argument, which means the choice is sometimes forced upon ourselves. It's the reason why they're failed to acknowledge that as necessary bad. We don't give all rights to the states. It's exactly why ethics and politics are tied. That's our chart. It's not going to repudiation to the kind of trajectory the argument on the team is just a test competition. They can see the two solid deficits of the compound. The first is the fact that the counterplan conditional means they can't solve our ethics. Sean Tornham says the ethics of obligation to the other must be unconditional, otherwise it's not an ethics. If you can just say that I'm going to create a state of exception for the ethics. The second, their only practices, they did not perform the ethics of the 1AC. They both criticize the ethics of the 1AC as well as in the same speech is why hard-footed evidence or Campbell evidence allows for state co-options. We have a stronger link and two co-options. Now, powers fluid, they conceded that the state does not exist. That is our Brownhour evidence only composed of individuals, meaning their assumption of a state that's out there that is a presence goes downward, undercuts their own resistance and capabilities because that's true. We can never resist because power is always out of our reach, always out of our grip. The counterplan's mechanism has a mechanism for self-defense. The state is our mechanism, which is why we need to say you, sorry Katie, you and just do not have the ability to launch cyber into space. You don't have the money, which is exactly what structure is a true argument in the context of this criticism. Now, the answer British proper. Our 1AC agrees with most of their offense. Obviously, not going to permutation to the alternative, but I'm going ham on permutation to both their memory evidence. It's bad. It's the exact reason why they link, because they're focused on racialized politics. Is the reason why they don't focus on the animal, or at least the reason why the permutation is able to solve. It's able to incorporate the multiple divergent viewpoints. That's the reason why we should be able to solve now the permutation. Permutation, we do both. We agree, and we should include the speech act, the scholarly ethics of the 1AC are key. When you call for all their link evidence, you should read it next to our Shona evidence because it makes all the analysis they talk about. Their Vaughn evidence is the reason they do not get at what we are talking about, because their assumption is that we extend the caring about life. That was already done in the case debate. Now, the historical link evidence. It is factually true that when NASA framed the debate in the 50s, the way that they framed it was between human and machine. We are not saying that is a good frame. In fact, we are in criticism of that frame, which is exactly why it's factually true. That's not a link to ourselves. That is the way that they frame it. This is just a historical or accurate argument. Now, the NASA link does not apply to us. Their goal evidence is not in the context of our ethics, which is the reason why our ethics in the context of Lebanon, who we also criticize. I will do the analysis of the 1AC below. The 1AC specifically criticizes and emphasizes the idea of a being that's able to control all their evidence. Their Yahi evidence includes negative cross-reference on this. Now, we have the better form of historical analysis on this question. Before animals can be subjugated or slaughtered, you need reins to reel them in, you need tools to destroy them. This is exactly the reason why our ethics are a prior question. Their shift to hunter-gatherer society was made possible by the domestication, not only of foodstuff, but the use of tools to domesticate them in the first place. And here's evidence that proves that we're not exclusive in Trona. And now we start awarding 10 abilities. We're highly less likely that these are anthropocentric things fall. And to we should be kind of divide between the options, divide between objects and us in ordering society. The assumption human objects should become order. The purpose of your writing to the ethics is we become objects, program scripts, as well as higher logic. Up to the Yep.
Scouts want to know if this is a same version of an app or a new version.
Yes, same version.
Yeah, can we, yeah. I don't want that. Here we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's fast.
Surprise. Yeah, we've got about 6 minutes left before the It was good. I drove. It's down after Pittsburgh or something. Yeah, not long. It was $6 Casey drove too. Yeah. Nancy is through. I think I go to a lot of things in the Lord. Upper South, a little west. See here with the sort of media. No, no, Casey is. Oh, yeah, he is. It's not like big snap. It's kind of, they're only like having here and it's just, look at those categories. She wants to go to two parts that are like solar storms are the worst. Like, all right. Yeah. Not let you do that. Solar storms aren't the worst. It's true. Yeah, it seems like people are pretty dispersed in that. Everybody I talk to is going good. Yeah, we're, I think, the only people that are with us are, yeah. No, not I was thinking. Oh, we would go like courtyard. Yeah, this thing is so good. This need to finish. There's much good change. Yeah, it's here.
Yeah, man.
Okay, the order will be the Catholic pick and then the anthro.
All right. Sure.
Is this it? Yep. Oh.
Okay, and everybody good?
Counterplan, we won't go for it. We won't go for it. It's a conditional efficacy. They don't have any offense on this flow. That isn't resolved by the alternative on the anthropocentrism critique. Now go to the critique proper. It does not matter if they win that there was no impact to death. If we win our claims of genocide and value to life and win a turns case argument, and if total planetary extinction becomes inevitable within their framework, which is an argument that they are conceding, then that means that there is no ability. That means that there is no ability for value in the first place. A sub-point is our Gottlieb argument. Their view of nature leads to a dominant discourse with nature because nature is but a footnote in their approach to ethics. It ensures that their attempt to change humanity's way of relating to things outside of itself ends in violence. This goes with our B sub-point, which is the subjugation of animals is the means behind which all domination occurs, then leads to the us versus them dichotomy at the root of our violent understandings of others. That is what our best evidence talks about. I am not really sure what they were going for with their subjugation argument, but our ability to control and subjugate animals that is reified through the 1AC is what has allowed us to logically extend that to dominate others, even if there have been other things such as creating tools that were a prerequisite to that is the logical extension of our attempt to dominate other living beings that allowed us to continue that cycle in the first place. And our many argument is not a reason why we link to ourselves, but a reason why they can't solve for us-them dichotomies that are at the root of their advocacy, because racism is something that is inherent in their approach. I will also win that we turn case the exclusions that they isolate between simply human and cyborg are further reaching than what they indicate, constructing the dichotomy as they are reinscribes the very sovereign card to draw lines between forms of life such as human and animals. A major exclusion undermines their method and reentrenches domination exploitive ethics that use animals as a sub-cyborg tool and ultimately recreate the division between humanity and technology that is based upon a logic that they reproduce. I'll go to the link debate now and it'll make more sense here. Just because you didn't see it doesn't mean that it wasn't there rejecting you. Any new 1AR arguments to the link level of the debate. The 2AC straight up dropped the Levinas portion of our link argument. I'll keep it simple. Levinas' view of nature as a dominant masculine, one that distances ourselves from others, forms of life, and reinscribes anthropocentric relations. To Levinas, our natural side represents a threat of consumption or use for the other. This viewpoint is wrong. Our belonging to nature as a system is what provides us a basis for an ethics that is appropriate to resolve ecocide. That is the Gottlieb evidence from the 1NC. Even if you think that their Introna evidence helps them mitigate the us-them dichotomy portion of the link from there, excluding talking about animals, that does not mitigate the Levinas portion of our link argument, which straight up hasn't been answered throughout this round, which means we only need to win a risk of an impact, and that should be sufficient. If we win, the alternative is also a good idea. They've also not answered the other portion of the link link argument, which is outlined by our Yi evidence, which indicates that the question of the cyborg must be reframed without anthropocentrism, even if their approach attempts to destroy that. It is a question of intent versus actuality because of the way that they construct their policy with their ethical approach. That means that will inevitably fail. Now the permutation debate, he sets a lot of weight here. However, it is not something that will win them the round. Our framework for permutations at the F must prove that there is a value in incorporating their anthropocentric ontology. If they don't have a net benefit, disregarded because there is only a risk of a link. They have not articulated an external net benefit to this other than they can include the affirmative within this. If the alternative is sufficient to break down levels, if the alternative is sufficient to break down dichotomies in the same way that the affirmative does, then that means that you should reject the permutation. They're conceding a reason why you should prefer this is because permutations have to include the entirety of the 1AC descriptions, and the plan isn't selected in a vacuum, which means if we win that there is a flaw with the plan or a risk of a flaw with the plan, that is a reason to reject the permutation. Additionally, is the Calarco argument focus on animals is key to disrupt the anthropological machine. The negative merely footnotes them and relegating them into irrelevance. The 2NC evidence that is read on this is pretty good and indicates that the permutation is just an attempt to try and co-opt our criticism of the ethics portion of their affirmative. In doing that, it only sets that right back underneath their advocacy. And the Vaughan-Williams evidence indicates that the House reliance on this logic only reinscribes the impression that they attempt to solve, which will help prove the turns case argument. It spreads anthropocentric logic. We cannot settle until we erase all lines between all forms of life. Even if they erase lines between humanity and something that is an inanimate object, that does not mean that they lead to erasing the fundamental line between humanity and other portions notions of being. If our Levinas argument helps verify this, because their approach to ethics excludes that of nature, it is a reason why their orientation towards ethics can never actually lead to resolving that portion of it. Let's see. Yeah, their last argument is about subjugation. However, the evidence that he reads in the 1AR also, like, I dare them to go for this argument, is this Introna evidence, but where he marks it in the 1AR isn't at a point where it actually makes an argument as to whether or not the AF is mutually exclusive. It just talks about why deconstructing anthropocentrism is something that is bad. That is something that we agree with, but the affirmative approach is something that doesn't work because of their inclusion of Levinasian ethics, which is something that we critique. And it's a link argument that's been consistently conceded. If we win that that is the root of ecocide, that is a reason why we would trigger all of their impacts, and the alternative is a better way of resolving that because it helps break down the root of the biological dichotomy. And our ecological ethics would expand our personal and species sense of identity into an inter-identification with the natural world, which is sufficient to spill over and affect theirs as well.
7.
Can we get that one, okay?
Oh yeah.
Right down there.
Yeah, that way it's left, on the left, right.
ethics in case? Or sorry, ethics in anthro?
That'll be fine.
That's why you gotta wear cufflinks.
Super classic.
When you're going for a K against PF, you have to go to the case. Well, there's a couple too many arguments are conceding. The first is our ethics have been clear. Always will wear social others because we are constituted by otherness. Our internal evidence and our cook evidence and our Norquist evidence is that we are made up by the inanimateness and the other forms of otherness that surround us. We constantly owe ourselves to this because we do not understand ourselves or exist without those, which means even in an egoistic framework, our ethics is what comes first. This is the only impact that you should evaluate because they concede all of the materiality to it. All matter will inevitably terminate. Everything is going to die in a billion, a trillion years. The universe will expand to the point where it ceases to exist. This is the Clark evidence. But we have a unique choice. We're in a unique ontological position where we are capable of making ethical choices, which means that deciding to be ethical in the moment is all that matters. Not at the bottom of the case, well, there's a projection argument, which means that the alternative can never solve 100% of the case because it sees value in the animal as being like human. It says that the animal is alive and therefore it is valuable. But we do not know objects. We do not know what it is like to be an object. There is no same. Any ethics that grounds itself in sameness is doomed to failure because it ultimately continues an ethic of exclusion, which means that any risk that the alternative grounds itself in some sort of conception is animal superior to other forms of being, or animal even on an equal plane, or animal on an equal playing field to human with something else below it, means that they do not solve it. If the critique alternative does include this, there is absolutely zero risk of competitiveness.
Yeah. Wait, this projection just said proves that they don't know.
This projection just said proves
they can't access their ethics.
So they can't access their ethics.
Or why their anthropocentrism is always anthropocentric itself.
Or
it's only about what's like us.
Anthropocentrism is always anthropocentric itself because it's always like us.
Yeah.
Internal intrinsic. Okay.
Yeah.
Anthro.
Conceding one.
Yeah. You cannot go for this critique when you are conceding the level of historical analysis that Nathan did in the 1AR. The first argument is that we get to the bottom of their argument better because it's impossible to subjugate the animal with a mechanization of technology. This is 100% of the thesis of the slaughter of animals could not take place without the slaughterhouse or the reins taking those animals. It cannot exist without an idea of some sort of mechanization, some sort of being that is used entirely instrumentally in order to subjugate those animals. And furthermore, the animal can never be subjugated without the idea of it as a tool. Oxens were used to plow fields were enslaved because we saw them as part of our tools as opposed to a being in themselves. We are a rejection of all systems of valuation as per our internal evidence, which means that the ethics of what you see, regardless of whether or not explicitly rejects the notion of the animal, would be able to solve this. On the link debate, the permutation would be able to solve all their offense. So we have a clear benefit, which is the scholarship we produce, the analysis as to why the machinic matters. They need to do more than prove that their ethics are good. They need to disprove the thesis of the case, which I don't think they've adequately done because they haven't proved that we should not have encountered with things like machinic. If anything, we add something to the scholarship, which the permutation is necessarily able to solve. On the link debate, there is zero risk of a link. First of all, there is zero risk of a link. There are arguments about the human, the robot, and space policy doesn't make any sense. They can see Nathan's analysis. This is just a true framing of what happened historically. NASA decided to have a debate between a discourse between human and machine. We agree that this discourse is bad. It's exclusionary and it leads to things like imperialism. This is our Lonnius evidence. We are a rejection of that discourse and any notion of a stable human as per our Introna and our Norquist evidence, which means that we're necessarily able to solve these links. If you don't think that the affirmative includes a discussion of the way that the animal has been influenced in our discussions, call for the Introna evidence. We are a rejection of all systems of calculation, all systems of evaluation of one thing for another, which means we necessarily would not value the human for the animal. We don't create a sub-cyborg being. That doesn't make any sense because we reject any notion of a sub-being of any kind, which means only a risk that the affirmative is able to outweigh and break down other forms of exclusion. Now, the Levinas links don't apply. Nathan's analysis of the 1AR was perfectly sufficient given the block extrapolation of this argument. Anywhere that I've extended the Introna evidence or the case in any part of this, we answer this because we are not Levinas. We are a critique of Levinas. We say that Levinas draws his ethics from sameness, from the face-to-face encounter. We reject the idea because there are some others that do not have a face. We are not the kind of Levinas we're talking about. We're so far ahead on the truth level of this argument that if you call for the Introna evidence, you will vote out immediately because we are a rejection of all systems of exclusion. Absolutely no risk of a link.
But they make the argument about footnoting. This argument is about you focus on animals. If we win the historicity portion of this debate, that disproves that.
Yeah. They make this argument about footnoting. If we win the historical analysis, that this proves that they are dropping all the historical analysis. They're also conceding the internal evidence that Nathan read in the 1A, or he did read enough, and we marked it as logic. What that card says is that when we see things as the human as more valuable than technology, or as separate from it than this, is what is at the root of anthropocentrism, which means that they have conceded a card that internally turns 100% okay.
Like the idea that animals can become disposable.
The idea that animals can become disposable starts from some kind of conception of disposability or non-value, which the entire 100% of the affirmative is a rejection of Esper and Troyan evidence. The Levinas links are incoherent in the context of our ethics, and the NASA links would necessarily be solved by the permutation, which would include that discussion along with our discussion. It is probably part of our discussion to begin with, because we are a rejection of any narrative of the human in space exploration or otherwise.
Is this hard?
I realized what it is.
Fair.
If you want me.
Nice. What did you pour on? Oh, you did. Oh, you are. Yeah. Yeah.
Not that you wanted to say we come home. I would say we like, all right.
Yeah.
Round one. I don't know about
Yeah.
Oh, my God. She's really have a stretch tough shirt.
No?
Yeah,
A little
it's shirt that has
Huh?
A little bit.
cufflinks.
He sometimes has coupling shirts.
Okay, because I have cufflinks with me. I got it.
Oh,
Fashion opportunity.
what is that? Oh, from Waterfalls.
Those are very
That's
slick.
where I like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was great with your shirt, actually.
Little big man.
Cha-cha, cha-cha. Wouldn't that be a good look for him? I'll write mine.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Check it out.
When Michael's big. I think he's bigger than Ben.
Seriously? It's like something bad will happen.
You don't really have a French. Yeah, we're getting there.
Oh, who took this on your phone?
The one from the YC and the one.
You don't have to.
Oh, the mail? Oh, just now? Oh, that's pretty good. That's a really nice one of the three of us.
Yeah, he trusts now. Yeah.
Wanted to see suffocation. About like, how could it buy, the sidewalk to do
Oh, I can. Oh, that was it.
So, yeah, it's also the truck. That's you got it.
It's great.
Totally.
Very nice. Get Patty's thing.
Gotta start from anthro / projection of anthro must be total. I think Vaughn Williams maybe, I don't know if that's a Lindsay card or a block card. Like the Vaughn Williams card. Then I need the 1NC especially.
No, he's asking for that. What's the run?
So let me know if I just got it, right?
That looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Golly.
Because he wants the one see and
One hand's a little longer than the other.
Yeah, well, start from anthro / like projection has to be total or uncompromised. Okay, I guess I'll see that too.
Yeah. Here you go.
Thanks.
Just these two. First card's really long. Sorry.
I assume it's the,
It's
there's kind of a
green.
shift between light green.
It's all the colors.
All
Sorry.
colors,
Yeah.
okay.
Because it used to be less, but then we had another card, so we took the card out and just added more. Yeah. I think also the orange.
I see, yeah, you had to move from a novella to a novel.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh.
The long card. It's good though.
They always talk about cards, and I keep thinking index cards.
That's what they used to do.
Huge sheets of paper.
They used to have index cards here.
Oh, they used to?
Yeah, that's where it came from.
All right, here you go.
Thanks.
Yeah, you just hit the arrows, it'll go through everything.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
This is my lunch. Pick up on all the stuff. It's like to them, the kids are talking about because it really.
see you lost.
No, well, I thought he was like, I
Yeah,
just had it, so I
oh,
was like, I wasn't
harsh.
trying to be rude.
Harsh. Jeez, that's harsh. Do you guys have one? Cool. Or are you good about it? Or not, sorry. Is that like the mechanism, or is that just a means to work on the ASS? Are they any advantages having?
Hey Richard, this went dark, so.
Oh.
It's,
Password.
Do I have like internal software and then the ISS on neuroscience?
yeah, like the ISS advantage is about like space co-op on the ISS.
Right, but is it like it's just strictly?
Oh no, the neuroscience is like military. Like neuroscience can be military.
Why is it?
Like neuroscience develops like, or it can be applied to use like weapon systems or like.
Wow.
So as soon as your brain,
Why do you
as soon as your brain
I never
reacts,
heard of them before, that's what
program.
You can connect your mind to
For what?
a weapon.
It's nice when your
That's
school
Oh,
like supports
Chris
that.
is good.
I never heard of them about that.
Okay. As soon as you think you just do something, it's like, I don't like you, Dad.
Yeah.
And our
That's good.
Glenbrook has like 16.
Just like through that.
It's amazing.
Okay. So just like, do it, like, is that a terrorist or not? I don't know. Yeah. Good? Good? Okay. Still checking. Can I save this for finals? Will we get again?
Also because, yeah.
I always wonder if like some of the cards people in debate, if like someone's talking sarcastically and someone's trying to stop them. Like a lot of posture stuff, I can't tell if he's sarcastic or anything. So it's like, no, seriously, existential risk. Like, one, 10 to the 33rd lives, you know. I don't know if you're being real or not. So we'll find out. No. What?
Oh wait, are these the items?
I'm sorry.
Oh my god, that's so lovely. The three-legged one?
You would have to grab my evidence up here too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody's here. I voted affirmative in this debate. I think that the main problem is that so I think there's sort of like three key vectors. The first is the question of whether or not the Levinas argument is dropped.
Levinas' argument is like dropped only in the most literal possible sense of the idea, which is to say that the 2AC does not say, they read this card that assumes this thing about Levinas, R1AC evidence deals with this Levinas thing in a totally different way. What the 2AC does say as the second argument is this argument about how the critique is not intrinsic to the 1AC because they reject the very idea of there this being this idea of one other over another, and they reject a stable notion of the human. Your argument is premised on Levinas having this idea of a face-to-face communication between two humans, which privileges a sort of stable notion of what the human is. So I think that the 2AC definitely rose to the threshold of saying you're wrong in the way that you're characterizing our cards. Would the 2AC have gotten more speaker points if the 2AC had kind of gone nuts on this stuff and said, oh my god, I can't believe you read this Levinas card, this is the total opposite of what our AF really did, and you are super duper wrong about this, I can't believe you did it? Yes, absolutely, I think you should have addressed it in a more aggressive way. As it is, I'm not sure whether or not the slow play was intentional or not, but it may have kind of baited you into going for the argument in this debate, which I think kind of put you at a difficult spot, because by the end of the debate, I feel like the main link argument you're going for is this Levinas argument. It's kind of a Hail Mary. The 1AR is good enough for this historical analysis argument to kind of back you off the loon of the dog link. And so, we're really dealing with a very basic link argument here. And I think that this argument that the 1AR makes about projection sort of proves their disadvantage to the alternative argument, because the problem with your alternative is that it understands things in terms of the human and the non-human. And while some of your evidence is okay at saying, sort of critiquing anthropocentrism has the possibility of being in alliance with sort of a politics of the cyborg, right, or sort of productive, future politics of heterogeneity, none of it rises to the level to say, right, that it alone would be good enough. Because even your own evidence, like the problem that your argument about Levinas has is, it says it doesn't have a good way to account for or discuss the kind of like the non-human human as opposed to the non-human animal. And so their evidence, I think, very clearly sort of says, if you don't have a way to account for the non-human, non-animal within the framework, then you're building that idea or that distinction somehow into what's happening. And so you're not going to be able to recognize impression that occurs to those things which don't seem human to us. Which begs the question, it's like, what does it mean to seem human? But I do think this idea that for anthropocentrism is limited in a certain way because it understands or tries to project how humans think about themselves on other living creatures that seem fundamentally similar to us in one way or another. This was another case where I thought that that after debating on the question could have been better, but I'm not sure that you have and this is, I think, a structural problem. It's not a problem with your debating in this debate round. I do not know how you would resolve this question, And I thought that earlier in the debate, I thought it would have benefited you to make a different decision strategically. As it was, the debate ended up being sort of close just because I think you guys don't go nearly far enough to sort of like use the sort of cyborg stuff to just bash, this anthropocentrism argument. By the 2AR, you're kind of like, I don't think it links, and I think the permutation solves, we're good. From the beginning, I mean, you should kind of be like a little more aggressive or assertive about how wrong you think that this argument is, because, it wasn't until I kind of like listened to the 2NR and the 2AR and then kind of read the evidence and like sort of ferreted out what was happening that I kind of realized, the 2AC really didn't screw this thing up. And the negative was kind of sort of behind on it. I think part of the problem was in the block that, you needed to kind of understand that a Kapler counterplan was only going to work if you also beat their got to use the state arguments, the like 2 Sennenstrom cards or whatever it was that the 2AC read. And so once you had kind of, pitched your 10 on the Kapler thing as a way to draw fire, it was going to be tough for that to be a thing that you could win the debate on. That said, I thought that the 1AR made a major mistake by spending way too much time on anything but anthro. Because if you think that you're right, that they didn't really answer these like you got to use the state arguments, then you can really, really, really undercover the counterplan, because those things are huge monster disadvantages of the counterplan. So you're like, Kapler, maybe we link a little because we distinguish between ourselves and the state. We'll play some link defense on that since this is a debate round, it doesn't go to the state. We have arguments to say ethics collapses ethics and politics. That's a good way to think about these things. And then here's a little external disadd, kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. Kapler, hypergeneric, our stuff, hyper-specific. I don't know how good your cards are on gotta engage the state. And then also, you should have made the argument that gotta engage the state is disadd to the anthropocentrism alternative, since they're talking about jamming anthropocentrism from sort of a critical perspective rather than by like occupying institutions and then doing anti-anthropocentric things. And so it's like, all the stuff that's DA to the Kapler part of the thing that doesn't do the plan, well, they don't do the plan either. So it's like still, and in the 2NC, right, the 2NR even says quite appropriately, this is an opportunity cost question, which means that the things that the plan can do are things that are probably just adds to the alt. So I thought you were kind of playing fast and loose a little bit in the 1AR. There was kind of an opportunity to like, exert mass punishment, and instead it was only minor punishment. I thought, and so could have made the 2NR's life a little bit more of a living hell. As it was, the 2NR I thought was pretty good on several of these questions, made the right decision given what was happening in the debate. It's just that the best distinctions you were able to draw probably just weren't right.
So, different block strategies.
Different block strategy. I was jiving to the like, I was jiving to the what's the state got to do with this? I mean, because I don't, as long as you're able to sort of win like any kind of argument about how, like it's like, why was the state in your 1AC? Like, ask the question, and it's like their answer seems to be like it's important to go through institutions or work through institutions, but it's clear that they have cards that say that it's important to do those things, but it seems like those things assume that there's a very good intrinsic connection between the mandates of the plan and the critical literature that they're talking about. I'm really quite unsure, how good their solvency card for cyborgs in space like equals the thing that really jams this stuff. And so like, your counterplan is not only, right, necessarily a pick out of the state, but I was reading some of the case arguments about, the capital arguments I thought were just like a good net benefit of the counterplan. It's about institutional displacement. And then the other thing is, I think that they clowned you a little bit on this case stuff where they were like, you assume old AF, but I thought the arguments that were like, why is space key to this were kind of making a good amount of sense to me. It's like they read one card that's like, we've overdetermined like the idea of machines in space. It's like, okay, but there's all of these other things that the idea of like the separation between the human and the cyborg do on Earth, and that are probably pretty bad. And it's unclear to me if we're kind of in a sort of a lefty political movement world, like what impact that they're talking about that occurs in space is distinct from just a counterplan that was like, we should kind of encounter cyborgness, around here. And I thought your counterplan, while it didn't explicitly do that, like you could have manufactured that as a floating pick to the like Zupanchik K or something, and then you could have said like, yeah, the problem is with this old NASA narrative. It's like, why are you even referencing that in the first place? And it's like, the whole idea is like, we want to create a politics that doesn't recognize differences, so why would we even tether it to this history? So yeah, I just think a different block strategy. And it's like, I mean, as it was, the 1AR didn't do what they could have done, given that I don't think that the counterplan really saw much of anything, which, I mean, I thought that the stuff that you debated on the counterplan of the 1AR was good. I just thought that without kind of addressing the interactions between the Zupanchik critique and the counterplan, the 1AR just wasn't going to need to spend as much time on it as he did. Yeah, so I would say that was a sort of different choice. The strategy, I don't think the strategy is the worst. Although, I mean, in retrospect, it may be the case that anthropocentrism was the worst of the arguments that were made in the 1C, relative to the thing that the AF did. And so, that part of the strategy. In the future, I would be concerned about, after reading the cards, I would be concerned about them straight turning this anthro position, like if they were a little more well prepared for it. Because she's pretty on point about that. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thanks.
I actually did judge a hedge versus hedge debate. I wasn't wrong. Once he was like, yeah, sure.